All right, we can't keep putting this off. What the happened here?
We're joined now by Vice President J.D. Vance. Mr. Vice President, thank you for joining us this morning. Let's start with the Middle East. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Hamas has confirmed they are holding.
This was immediately before Stephanopoulos, George Slobodanopoulos, as he's known by his close friends and family, talked to Pritzker, which is why in the opening of his convo with Pritzker, Pritzker said, "We just heard a bevel of lies from our vice president." I know that reference is there.
20 living hostages, and that those hostages are going to be released in the next 24 hours, early as today, perhaps. Have 20 living hostages been confirmed? When do you expect to see them?
Well, they've been confirmed, George. Of course, you don't know until you see these people alive, but thank God we expect to see them alive here in the next 24 hours, probably early tomorrow morning, U.S. time, which will be later in the day, of course, in Israel. But look, George, we have to remember this is a remarkable achievement from an administration that really chose a non-conventional path to diplomacy. And I think that's the major takeaway.
The non-conventional path in question being putting literally any pressure on Israel whatsoever. Novel stuff, really. I'd almost forgotten it was possible.
The United States instructed Marco Rubio, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff. He said, get a deal done. Talk to the Gulf Arab states, talk to Israel, find where there's common ground here, and actually let's go and find a way to get it done. And because of that, we are on the cusp of true peace in the Middle East, really for the first time in my lifetime. Certainly, these 20 hostages are going to come home to their families, George. I think this is a great moment for our country. Our country should be proud of our diplomats who made this happen. It's really a great moment for the world, too, which is why the president's going to go over there and celebrate with these hostages. But it's a great thing, and I'm very excited about it.
200 U.S. troops are being...
I need this so badly. I need Trump to show up at, like, a gala being thrown to honor the arrival of the 20 surviving hostages, and Trump like shakes hands and takes a picture with each of them, and Trump is explaining to all of them like how he saved their lives and how he's the greatest, and they're trying to talk to him about like their harrowing experience of being held by Hamas for 2 years, and he just clearly does not give a shit. He's like, yeah, and then he moves on to the next guy. God, that'd be f***ing good. It's probably gonna happen.
Sent to Israel to monitor the agreement. What exactly will they be doing? Will they actually go into Gaza? And are you concerned they could get caught in some crossfire?
George, so that story is actually misreported. We already have troops at Central Command. We've had them for decades in this country. They are going to monitor the terms of the ceasefire. And that's everything from ensuring that the Israeli troops are at the agreed upon line, ensuring that Hamas is not attacking innocent Israelis, doing everything that they can to ensure the peace that we've created.
This is a real question. Are we all just strongly opposed to JD and that's why we think he looks evil, or does he really look like that? I think we can all agree that JD does look like weird no matter what. And the fact that we know he's evil and like a internet neo-Nazi probably contributes to that. But he doesn't, like, he just doesn't look like a politician. Like, he just looks like he'd be fine in an office somewhere as like a kind of goofy character. But usually, and I think in a way this is another, and I'm being serious here, another example of the kind of I don't know, a populistification of Republican politics, which is that, how do I put this? Okay, you know that old saying, let ugly people make music again? How all the pop stars these days have to be hot, you know? And it didn't necessarily used to be the case because we didn't have television, but nowadays it's like, well, if you're going to be a pop star, you kind of have to be hot, you know? Having such a weird, uncanny looking VP means to me that the Republicans are signaling that they're looking for people who possess qualities that aren't just like, you know, oh, you look like you'd fit in on Capitol Hill. Does that make any sense? He just doesn't look like a politician. He doesn't. He doesn't have that, like, I don't know, commanding presence, which a lot of them do, you know. Unlike a lot of Congress people, a VP is actually chosen. So normally you want to go for somebody that really shores up the weaknesses in your campaign. But in this case, he was more of a Heritage Foundation pick, so...
actually sustains and endures. But the idea that we're going to have troops on the ground in Gaza, in Israel, that is not our intention. That is not our plan. There was a bit of a misreporting there, but we are going to monitor this piece to ensure that it endures. The other piece of good news that's been underreported, I think, George, is that Indonesia and a number of other majority Muslim states, they've actually offered to send ground troops to Gaza to ensure the necessary peacekeeping takes place. That's not something the United States is going to be expected to do. That's something the Muslim world is going to step up and do. And that, again, is because of the Trump administration's diplomacy.
The president has also put
I really did. You guys see? Do you remember Indonesia claiming that they were ready to send troops if directed by the UN at that UN summit? That was not like we're willing to step up to ensure Donald Trump's vision of peace in the Middle East. That was more of a we're willing to do holy war to protect Israel, or sorry, to protect the Palestinians against Israel. You know, the tone was a little different there.
Push for National Guard deployments in several American cities. As you know, that's been questioned by several federal judges, including Trump appointees. Also, the Republican governor of Oklahoma and chairman of the National Governors Association, Kevin Stitt. Here's what Governor Stitt said. We believe in the federalist system that states' rights. Oklahomans would lose their mind if Pritzker and Illinois sent troops down to Oklahoma during the Biden administration. How do you respond to Governor Stitt?
Well, I'd say to Governor Stitt, you have to look at what's happening on the ground in Chicago. And the reason why Illinois is a different
Muslim world is irrelevant, though. The term Muslim world is extremely racist. There's like a bajillion Muslims, and they're all very different. You know, it feeds into this white supremacist mythos of clash of civilizations. You have like the Christian world and the Muslim world, and there's like a great battle for the demographics of the future. And it's bullshit. The world has never worked that way. The Christian world is internally divided. You know, the Muslim world's internally divided. And there are plenty of countries that have both Muslims and Christians. Like it's a meaningless. Yeah, it's a very Hearts of Iron 4 way of looking at the world.
From Chicago is because Chicago has been given over to lawlessness and gangs for too long, George. If you look at the murder rates in Chicago, the violent crime rates, you have women who have young families.
Significantly lower than like every major Texan city.
They're terrified their kids are going to get killed in a drive-by shooting. We have accepted this for far too long in the United States of America. And
the rhetoric of like crime fear-mongering has gotten so lazy too. If you talk to these moms, they're scared their kids will get killed. That's all moms everywhere, regardless of any crime. That doesn't mean anything. That's every mom. That means nothing.
Of our biggest cities, and Chicago, unfortunately, is the worst. It's a beautiful city. It's got great people. We know the gross majority of the violent crime in that city is committed by a very tiny fraction of the population.
I think I've heard that one before.
Why shouldn't federal troops empower the people in Chicago to live safe lives when the governor and the local mayor just simply refuse to do their job?
But as you know, a federal judge, a U.S. district judge, has blocked the effort to deploy troops in Chicago. And it was Judge Perry, and she actually said that a lot of these claims that were made, especially in the court filings, lack credibility.
Well, George, we're obviously going to litigate this as much as we can. We think that we have the authority to provide proper safety to our citizens all over the United States, but particularly in Chicago. But I think for
liberal fascism, man, I can't believe he's talking about this, or he's speaking this way in the context of we are deploying troops to a major American city to suppress the will of the local population. You know, we think that the lawyers will bear out in our favor on this one. It's like, everyone is like this, man, and you're not going to push back against JD Vance by saying some weak ass shit like a judge finds you lack credibility. Every Republican thinks every judge that disagrees with the administration lacks credibility. They don't care. You would just have to say, well, you're a lying piece of shit. That like, here are all the cities with higher crime rates than Chicago. Go through them one by one. Go through them one by one. Here's a list of cities in Texas that have a higher crime rate per capita than Chicago. Here's a list of red states that have a higher crime rate per capita than Chicago. Why don't you send the National Guard there? Like, we all know you're lying, JD Vance. We all know that you just want to suppress the enemies of Donald Trump. Why don't you just be honest with it? Why are you so cowardly? Accuse him of being cowardly, you know? You could land a soundbite on this in about 15 seconds. You could do it before he even had time to respond. And I guarantee you, by the way, judging from the way J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller and Trump have reacted when facing genuine pushback, they would fold immediately. These are not like extremely high IQ Hannibal Lecter types who would like anticipate your every move and have like a perfectly rhetorically calculated response. They are used to the media being complicit. They're used to the media being weak and not actually asking pointed questions. And if you hit them with a pointed question, were your journalists always stenographers to power? I'm sorry, Broken King, what country are you from? And out of curiosity, how many public vows of fealty has your prime minister made to Israel in the past 24 hours? You. Journalists have always been stenographers to power. Yeah, it's gotten worse lately. Then again, if you learn about the life trials and tribulations of one Henry J. Kissinger, you'll find that actually journalists have maybe always been like this. I don't know.
Any federal judge or anybody else to look at the situation and say, is it tolerable? And I think the obvious answer, George, is no. The president looks at the situation. He sees the fact that you have multiple people dying of murders every weekend in the city of Chicago, and he says this is intolerable. And it's not just the people who live in Chicago, it's the law enforcement in Chicago, federal, state, and local, who are trying to keep us safe. George, you've seen ICE agents being teed off on in suburban Chicago, in places all over the state of Illinois, and other places too. You see 1,000% increase in violence against our ICE agents. They're being assaulted, they're being beaten, they're being shot at. I think all Americans, Democrat or Republican, we look at this scenario, we say,
No, whatever you're about to say, I disagree with it. Also, journalists need to say flatly, like, did the ICE officers deserve it? Like, are they restricting people's rights? Because we have like so many reports of their unabashed brutality, their thug behavior. You know, like you claim assaults against them are up. For one, I don't believe you, and for two, if they're violating people's liberties, do you think people should just go quietly into the night? No one's willing to ask like tough questions.
this is not acceptable. We want people to be safe. We want our law enforcement officials to be empowered to keep us safe.
We also know the stat is bullshit, by the way. Like 1,000% increase on assaults on ICE officers? No. You know where we get that stat from, by the way? ICE. You seriously believe them? Absolutely not.
We can do this, and that's exactly what the Trump administration has committed to doing.
Governor Pritzker is our next guest. President Trump has said that he should be in jail. Do you think Governor Pritzker has committed a crime?
Well, I think Governor Pritzker has certainly failed to keep the people of Illinois safe. And it's interesting to me, Governor Pritzker will talk a lot, I'm sure, about how bad Donald Trump is, about how bad I am, and about how bad the administration is. He is the governor of a state that where its biggest city has murder rates that rival the most violent places in the third world, George.
This is, again, like incomprehensibly not the case at all. I know you all know that. I just feel the need to repeat it in case there's anyone here who's like, I didn't know that. Like they think this is a credible source of information or whatever. Vance is boring. Yeah, of course he is. This is why he can't replace Trump.
Why is he so mad at Donald Trump for trying to keep Chicagoans safe? He should be mad at the criminals that he has failed to keep at bay. We're trying to help him, and we're trying to help the residents of his biggest city. I wish that he would let us, because he certainly isn't doing the job himself.
I asked if you agree with President Trump that Governor Pritzker has committed a crime.
Well, I think that Governor Pritzker has allowed a lot of people to be killed in the city of Chicago and elsewhere, George. I think that it's disgraceful, and I think that he absolutely should suffer some consequences for the fact that there are thousands of innocent Chicagoans who are dead because he failed to do his job.
It's really a yes or no question. Do you believe he's committed a crime?
George, you're going to keep on asking this question. I'm going to keep on telling you that Governor Pritzker has failed to do his job. He should suffer some consequences, whether he's violated a crime. Ultimately,
it's so pathetic that even this is considered like pressing by journalistic standards. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, like what's an example of like a bold interview tactic? What if you just insist they answer a question directly 3 times in a row? Oh my God, real journalism! Wow.
Would leave to the courts, but I certainly think that he has violated his fundamental oath of office. That seems pretty criminal to me. I'd leave it to a judge and jury to decide whether he's actually violated a crime.
Let me also
Violated
ask you,
a crime.
as you saw,
But this is what I mean when I say these are not like high IQ interlocutors who could effortlessly weave their way out of any trouble. Notice how he's flubbing even here.
Decide whether he's actually violated the crime.
let me also ask you.
Violated the law, committed a crime. Even like being pressed lightly to answer a question directly is enough to get them a little bit flustered. It's so easy, okay? Any like direct accusation would have him blustering.
As we saw the indictment this week of Letitia James on questions of mortgage fraud. Also, Lisa Cook has been accused by the Trump administration of committing mortgage fraud as well. The journalism outlet ProPublica has actually published a story, and I want to show it up on the screen right now, that says that several members of the Trump administration have faced similar questions. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez Durant.
Remember how Kristi Noem crashed out when a reporter asked her a serious question? It pisses me off so much, like more than the Trump administration itself does, that all of these like big mainstream media industry reporters are going to launder their reputations in the post-Trump era, and everyone's going to forget how they were about Trump and how they were about Israel. The same way it happened after the Iraq War. The Iraq War happened, all these people fell in line. They were all repeating the administration's lies, even though everyone knew Colin Powell was lying to the UN. Everyone knew Bush was full of shit, talking about WMDs, but they repeated the lies, they played into it. And then years and years and years after, when it was politically safe, they were all like, yeah, well, that was regrettable. I shouldn't have supported that. And that was it. And they got to keep their careers and their fancy mansions. Like Ezra Klein? Yeah, like Ezra Klein. Yeah, nobody paid a price. And they're doing it with Israel right now. And they're also doing it with their incredible weakness and complicity with Trump. Though we might not ever get like an impartial seeming mainstream media back, of course. With stuff like Barry Weiss taking over CBS, it's possible we might just be at the end of the phony impartial media. I would unironically rather my media be partisan right than the fake bipartisan that it's been for this long. At least if it was partisan right, everyone left of center could write off the media and would stop paying attention to it, It's kind of like the Kremlin, where everyone in Russia who doesn't like Putin knows that all the media that is state-run in Russia is not worth listening to. You can kind of go like, it doesn't really capture people because it's the fact that it's known to be partisan sort of immunizes you against that consideration.
Entered into two primary residence mortgages in quick succession. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has primary residence mortgages in New Jersey and Washington, D.C. Lee Zeldin, the Environmental Protection Agency administrator, has one primary residence mortgage in Long Island and another in Washington, D.C. How do you respond to critics who say that the Trump administration is engaging in a double standard here?
Well, I'd say two things, George. First of all, ProPublica is basically a left-wing blog. I'm not shocked that you found a left-wing blog that can attack members of the Trump administration. But second, and this is the most important, is what does the law say? Letitia James was indicted in a left-leaning part of our country, a part that voted very heavily against Donald J. Trump, for the crime of
by a federal prosecutor appointed by Trump.
Mortgage fraud. When I read the indictment, when I read the facts in the case, I see a person who committed mortgage fraud. Now, of course, the jury is going to decide whether she ultimately committed a crime. We don't try her. The administration doesn't try her. A judge tries the case, and a jury decides whether she's ultimately guilty. That is what is going to determine whether she goes to prison. I think we let the facts drive this, and George, that's what we've tried to do.
I wish Slopadopoulos would say, why did you say she was prosecuted in a left-leaning part of the country when it wasn't like local prosecutors who brought the charges against her? It was, in fact, the Trump administration who deliberately pushed for it and like threatened people's jobs to ensure they pushed for it. Like it has nothing to do with the area that she's in. It's a national affair.
The administration's Department of Justice. We've asked ourselves, has a person violated the law? And if that person has violated the law, then we decide to prosecute him. That's what the Department of Justice should do. It didn't do that under Joe Biden's administration. It does under Donald Trump's.
On the facts, do you dispute the facts that ProPublica reported?
Do I dispute a far-left blog that I haven't read that you brought up in this interview? I have no idea, George. I have no idea what they actually said. But I certainly question the source. I question their credibility. And most importantly, I'm not worried about what they said about members of our administration. I ask the question, what does the law say? And if the law says that you engage in mortgage fraud and a local prosecutor, a local grand jury, and finally a jury convicts you of that crime, then that is how the justice system is meant to work in the United States of America.
The White House border czar Tom Homan was recorded on an FBI surveillance tape in September 2020.
This is the bit. This is the bit. This part right here is the bit. This is why he can never take over for Trump, man. He's so whiny. Trump is also whiny, but he's whiny in this like grandiose, self-appraising way that comes across as a lot more theatric. Whereas JD Vance just comes across like he's just so smug and annoying. He's just annoying. He's just an annoying. There's a reason why no one cares at all for his like in-person appearances, for his speeches, for his, interviews, but his tweets do really well. And it's because his cadence is well structured for tweeting, smug, whiny, irritating, obnoxious, but like smarmy, a little soundbite. But then you actually listen to the guy and it's like, gee,
For accepting $50,000 in cash. Did he keep that money or give it back?
George, you've covered the story ad nauseum. Tom Homan did not take a bribe. It's a ridiculous.
So in case you don't know, the context for this is that late last year, at the very end of the Biden administration, the FBI did a bribery sting where they offered Tom Homan $50,000 in exchange for some kind of political favor. I forget what it was exactly. And Tom Homan just accepted the cash. Like, Tom Homan fell for it hook, line, and sinker. He was like, oh, a bribe? Yummy. Don't mind if I do. He floated over to the bribe with like the smell from the bag of money, like wafted into his nose, and he kind of hovered over to it, you know?
Smear, and the reason you guys are going after Tom Homan so aggressively is
Anyway, so this is a crime. Accepting a bribe as a federal official is a crime, but you know, that leads to an investigation. Trump wins very shortly after, because this happened in September 2024. Trump wins in November 2024. Trump becomes president, and then the investigation is dropped. Of course, they forced the investigation to be dropped.
because he's doing the job of enforcing the law. I think it's really preposterous. I know Tom. I think that he's a good man. He gets death threats. He gets attacked. He gets constantly threatened by people because he has the audacity to want to enforce the country's immigration laws. I think that it would be a much more interesting story about why is it that Tom Homan, who is simply enforcing Americans' immigration laws, is getting constantly harassed and threatened to the point of death threats. That's a much more interesting question that I think journalists should focus on. We can agree to disagree on that question.
Well, wait, you said he didn't take a bribe, but I'm not sure you answered the question. Are you saying that he did not accept the $50,000?
George, this story has been covered ad nauseum. He did not take a bribe. Did he accept $50,000? I'm sure that in the course of Tom Homan's life, he has been paid more than $50,000.
J.D. Vance answering to the Epstein accusations against Trump. Now listen, I'm sure that when Trump was a child, he knew many 12-year-old girls. Now, I don't know what exactly you're going on about, but
For services. The question is, did he do something illegal? And there's absolutely no evidence that Tom Homan has ever taken a bribe or done anything illegal, which is why he's working in the administration.
I'm asking you, did he accept the $50,000 that was caught on the surveillance tape? Did he accept that $50,000 or not?
George, I don't know what you're talking about. Did he accept $50,000 for what?
He was recorded on an audio tape in September 2024 in FBI.
So again, this is exactly what I mean. He's flubbing right now. This is like the lowest possible bar of pushback, which is again just insisting on an answer to a question. And JD Vance's, this was a huge mistake right here. Never ever ever say you don't know what you're talking about, because it's an invitation for the other side to then reiterate how bad this thing that you refuse to answer is. Now Slopadopoulos has the ability to explain, no, like Tom Homan, we have a video of him accepting a bag of cash. It's the most it's the most like comedically obvious way of accepting a bribe possible. It's not like normally I assume bribes are more subtle than this. This is not subtle.
Surveillance tape accepting $50,000 in cash. Did he keep that money?
Accepting $50,000 for doing what, George? I'm not even sure I understand the question. Is it illegal to take a payment for doing services?
Yeah. Yes. If you're a federal official, yeah, that's called a bribe.
FBI has not prosecuted him. I've never seen any evidence that he's engaged in criminal wrongdoing. Nobody has accused Tom of violating a crime.
Yeah, they have. They were prosecuting him. You just dropped the charges when you took over. You can't. Yeah, the investigation was ended by the Trump administration.
The far left media like yourself. So I'm actually not sure what the precise question is. Did he accept $50,000? Honestly, George, I don't know the answer to that question. What I do know is he didn't violate a crime.
He's terrible at this. Terrible at this, man. Even a little bit of pushback. This is where Trump would just disengage completely. Trump would be like, "You're a loser. No one watches you. No one watches this stupid, shitty network. I don't know what you're talking about. You're wasting my time." And then he would leave. And that would be like way more in an environment where you flagrantly lie over and over and over again, constantly, and don't even try to cover your tracks. That's all you can really do. You can't argue the point.
What was caught on the tape, you're saying right now you don't know whether or not he kept that money.
I don't know what tape you're referring to, George. I saw media reports that Tom Homan accepted.
This is also really, really stupid to do. Like, you can't pretend you haven't heard anything about it. You have to if you wanted to lie about this and like disengage or avoid the question, he has to he needs to continue lying. Right? The only way out is through. He needs to say the FBI, investigated as they do all federal departments for corruption and found nothing out of the ordinary in this case. He needs to continue lying his way through. But he's trying again. It's the midwit thing, man. It's the midwit thing where he's like, with my high IQ and supreme Aryan intellect, I can simply argue my way out of this obvious knowing lie everyone knows I'm engaging in. Where like he hates the idea of being in a position where the only way out is to just be stupid, like obviously dumb to everyone around you. But it is. That's what makes Trump special.
Accepted a bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility.
Nope.
Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States.
You took too long to do it, man. You took too long to do it. Trump would have done it the moment there was any pushback.
About this story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, but I don't even know the video that you're talking about.
Why would you?
Meanwhile, low-income women can't get food because the Democrats and Chuck Schumer have...
He's so bad at this. Oh my God, really? This is the pullback you're going to do after 5 attempts at deflecting? Now you're going to... Meanwhile, women...
shut down the government. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer has shut down the government. You are focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
He'll be getting media training from Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller's also not good at this, by the way. Stephen Miller and JD Vance both have the midwit virus, where they fall apart when questioned by reporters because they think they can outsmart being obviously wrong, and you actually can't. It's not possible.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
It really is a shame because people are talking about this like it's a BTFO, and to be honest, it kind of is. Like, it's just such a low bar. You know what I mean? It's such a low bar. Like, any pushback and these people fall apart. JD Vance objected to being cut off. Oh, are you saying that in this MSNBC cut off that part? Hold on. I think I have the clip from the live.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, George,
Governor
I
J.B.
said that I
Pritzker's
don't.
Up next. We'll be right back.
Okay, that does add quite a bit. Incredibly cowardly of MSNBC to not upload that part. It feels like such a minor story in the grand scheme of things, but it is insane. Like, again, the borders are being just handed a big peck. Fuck Obama, dude. You know Obama appointed Tom Homan? I can't get over that, man. I can't get like, all the seeds of our destruction were laid by the... Oh no, I shouldn't overstate. I shouldn't overstate. Not all the seeds of our destruction were laid by the Democrats, but a lot of them were, man. A lot of them were. Actually insane. It's not like he wasn't evil before. Yeah, he was still like this back then. It goes back to before Nixon even. I think you could reasonably argue that the relationship that Kissinger and Nixon had was probably the end of a lot of things in America. We often cite Reagan as like the starting point for a bunch of economic damage and social damage, and that's all completely true. But I think the real rot in government wasn't actually Watergate. It was the Kissinger-Nixon relationship and all of the like oversteps of federal power and all the paranoia and all the weird like we're not public servants. We're actually like weird like self-serving grifters who are just taking advantage of the office to do whatever we can to embolden our own personal brand. Not to say there wasn't an element of that to political leadership before. There always has been. But I think that like Nixon and Kissinger together kind of yeah, probably. The entire shape of our government was designed to shield against the kind of people that power attracts. I think that like you could make a reasonable argument. I think that even though we've had many evil presidents, and we have many evil people in power, that was the beginning of, no, not the beginning of, I don't know, maybe the death of the concept of political leadership as public service. Maybe that's an overstatement too. I don't really know. Andrew Jackson was the beginning, lol. Ah, yes, the man who invented racism. I'm not talking about presidential immunity, though, user test account. It's that, like, I don't know. Never mind. Forget it. Forget about it. Forget.